locations: La Ola Restaurant, Tuckaway Cafe, Blue Ribbon Events, Beach Pottery, Shuckers, and of course Pete's Time Out. And we're only 2 Saturdays away from our 3rd anniversary here on the beach. And we're going to get right into our show this morning. We have 2 fabulous guests, including school board member Chris Patricca. How are you? Welcome back to the show. We appreciate you coming on.
Time, right?
He did. He got it right. Thank you. I'm used to it. I have a daughter named Patty. So a lot of people call me Patty because of the last name. They get confused, whatever.
So welcome back. We appreciate it.
I've been called worse.
Okay.
I bet you have.
So since the last time you were on when you were running for the school board to get reelected. And it's been quite a busy time since you were elected. How are things going?
Busy. Very, very busy. We have a lot of issues that we're facing. We did just hire an interim superintendent, so that should keep things calm for the next 6 to 9 month period. On Monday, the board will meet to determine which search firm we're going to hire to help us find a permanent replacement for Dr. Atkins.
So
I just wanted to, can you tell us a little bit about the interim superintendent?
Sure. His name is Dr. Ken Savage. He's been with the district almost his entire career. He did have a stint up in the Department of Education. After he was named Principal of the Year for the state of Florida, he went into James Stephens International Academy and put some fantastic programs in place to really turn that school around. He's a dynamic leader. When he's in a room, you know he's there. High energy, very innovative. He'll be a breath of fresh air for sure.
In your opinion, was it time for change in that position?
It's time for change because Dr. Atkins decided to retire.
Okay.
I would have been happy to keep Dr. Atkins in place. There's a couple of programs that he had in the works, the proximity plan, which I think we discussed a couple of times. A change in leadership when you're in the middle of something that has such a great impact on the community can be tough. But I'm confident that Dr. Savage can carry us through that.
Real quick on the school down here, the beach school, which is a small school, and somebody had mentioned at one time, I think it was at one of the committee meetings, that they were concerned, and I think I might have asked you this in an email, that they were concerned that being that it was so small, the board might think about closing it. What can you, just to let people know or put them at ease, what you can tell us about anything that might happen like that?
Well, I can tell you that continuing to operate the beach school is very inefficient. It is very expensive to operate a school with so few students because we have to, for example, have one school resource officer in every school. So when you take the cost of that school resource officer and you divide it by 1,000 kids in a school, it's pretty efficient. You divide it by 300 plus students in a school, it becomes less efficient. And that's true for every category of spending in that school. That being said, efficiency cannot be the only reason why you make a decision. And the beach school is such a part of this community that I can't fathom a scenario under which I would support closing that school.
You know, plus too, if they're not here, it's in terms of efficiency. Now you've got to add all the busing and all of that.
100%.
So, you know,
and there are ways to bring the population at that school up. You know, there are people that live off the island who come onto the island for work every day. So if we did a better job of communicating the availability of seats in that school to those people, then perhaps they would want to bring their children onto the island with them every day when they come to work.
Whose job is that? The school's job or the school district's job, or
yes,
everybody?
To both.
Okay.
Yes, to both.
Yeah, okay.
I would say if we're advertising for enrollment outside of the beach area, that would fall on the district.
Now, will that be part of the proximity plan that you were talking about? Would that help with that?
Actually, the plans that we've looked at so far wouldn't impact the beach school in the sense that it's too expensive to bus the kids in. So what we would be looking for is parents who are already driving onto the island so they could bring their children with them.
What's the closest school to the island that they would take them to?
Lexington
Heights, maybe.
Heights?
Lexington's
Okay.
a middle school, so probably Heights Elementary, I would think.
Got it. Now, we live in Gateway, and they just finished building a fabulous state-of-the-art
Enormous
facility out there that's gigantic. They have their own, looks like they have their own football field. I mean, I know the Gateway original field it wasn't even a field. It was like it was just a small outside area. So they really are upgrading over there. So my question is, with all the people moving to Southwest Florida, are there enough schools for all the kids?
No. And that brings us back to a discussion I think I had one of the first times I was on your show, the half penny sales tax. The half penny sales tax was passed to address the need to build schools. And we have, at that time, we had 7 schools planned. And right now, I can tell you what we've done with it. We added, I think, 500 seats at Lehigh Senior High School. We built Gateway High School. We built a new middle school out in the east. We are building another elementary school out in the east. We are building a pre-K through 8 in Estero. We are expanding our career and technical education centers in Fort Myers and in Cape Coral. And we're looking to build a new career and education college that would be an annex of Fort Myers Tech out east.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just what we have planned right now. As time goes on and growth continues, we'll certainly be building more.
Well, and I think people are coming in droves.
Yes.
I mean, I would imagine it's hard to even predict at this point, but it sounds, and I think it's true. I think people are they're going in the east zone.
Yep.
That zone is really, really blowing up. So how do you plan for something that's so difficult to calculate?
Well, we've got a fantastic system that looks at where students are moving and where the needs are. And in addition to that, when you're looking at maintenance of buildings, we have a capital plan that takes the board's values with regard to our infrastructure and prioritizes where the money will go and where the improvements will be made based on what the board's values are. And so, there used to be a sense that, well, this principal got, I don't know, a new roof because, the board liked him the most. Well, any kind of notion of that kind of favoritism is taken out of the process. It's all analyzed, and principals can look and see, okay, well, I didn't get my roof because this building had a roof that was about to collapse, if that makes sense.
So
much more objective and transparent.
Data driven and
Correct.
So where's the biggest need for a new school right now, in your opinion?
We have, I live in Estero, so I'm familiar with the South Zone. We are at 117% capacity for the schools that serve people who live in Estero. So there's a huge need there. And then out east, there's a huge need as well. I can't tell you specifically where out east. We own land in some places, and then we don't have land in other places. So if I tell you we need a school here, here, and here, that sort of sends a signal to the people that own that land. Ooh, the school district
It's
on hold
prices going up,
And so I don't necessarily want to go there. But in the West, we don't have quite as many capacity issues right now. That being said, it's one of the fastest growing cities in the nation. And so we're going to have to shift our focus out there eventually.
Are you happy with the education the kids get in the Lee County School District?
100%. I'm very, I can speak for my own 4. I am incredibly proud of the education they're getting. And when I talk to people from where I'm from, which is the Northeast, and I tell them the programs my kids are engaged in, they just can't believe it. International Baccalaureate and ACE Cambridge and AP is pretty common, but it's really, really widely available in our school system. The dual enrollment opportunities that we have for our kids, the comprehensive high schools where you have a slew of career and technical education programs available to high school students. I mean, it's unheard of in other parts of the country. So yes, I'm very proud of the quality of education our kids are getting.
What one thing would you like to see improved in the education?
I'd like to see even more opportunities for career and technical education.
Yeah.
And that is a focus. That was a focus of the outgoing superintendent, Dr. Adkins. And I haven't had the direct conversation with Dr. Savage about it, but you're seeing huge development in the Alico corridor. We have tons of manufacturing companies coming in, and you're seeing expansion of existing businesses in Lee County. We need to meet the demand that these companies have for employees.
Well, I know I was at an automotive chain getting my car worked on, and they were just desperate for mechanics that, I struck up a conversation. He's like, if you know anybody, we just need people. So I think that is a big growth area, that technical, the 2-year and the technical 1-year certificate programs is really a need for quality employees out there.
And the other area, I think, I don't know if it's improvement as much as it is something we need to be doing going forward, is we really need to harness the opportunity that was presented in COVID. Because of COVID, we had to shift and pivot and rely much more heavily on technology than we ever have before. That really accelerated our use of technology. There were a lot of wins and there were some losses. There were some problems there, but we need to embrace the opportunity for innovation to really revolutionize the way we conduct public education. And I'm going to push hard for that.
Do you think the kids were any worse off education-wise when they had to learn online?
Yes, absolutely. There are some students that absolutely thrive in that environment, and we need to preserve those opportunities for those kids. But there were some kids that really struggled in that environment. And so, yes, I think that as we come back this year,
Right.
we as a district need to be prepared to meet every kid where they are when they walk in the building at the beginning of the school year. Some kids are continued to fly, and some kids really, you're going to see
Suffered.
huge gaps.
And so, but going forward, to be clear, there is no Home Connect.
There is no Lee Home Connect. That being said, one of the first conversations I had with Dr. Savage was, please put it on staff's radar to be talking about the use of Lee Home Connect in the event of a hurricane.
Right.
Because if you look at Irma, I want to say our buildings were closed for 12 or 14 days.
Yeah.
Electricity was restored almost entirely countywide after day 8. There's no reason for our kids to not be learning. Just because we have damage to buildings,
Right.
we can continue to
idea.
learn. It's not ideal, but it's certainly better than schools being closed entirely to kids.
Right.
For those that don't know, what is the school district budget?
$1.92 billion.
$1.92 billion. That's with a B, $1 billion.
That's with the B, and it will be higher next year. The state did allocate more money per student next year. And of course, you mentioned we're growing. So the more students that come in, the bigger the budget is because we get more money from the state for each of those students.
And with home price, this might be a dumb question, but with the value of the homes going up, does that bring more money to the school district too?
Not necessarily. So we have what's called the required local effort, and the state monitors that closely. And typically they roll back that required local effort, making it so that we get the exact same amount of money that we got the year before.
Very cool. Do you think
that was not a stupid question? That's a really good question because most people don't understand how RLE works.
Do you think that the school teachers are getting paid enough?
I think that starting pay for teachers is a significant improvement. You know, the budget that was passed last year brought starting teachers up to $47,500. I think that's great. I would teach as a starting teacher at $47,500. I would feel
come
like
a long
I was
way.
Properly compensated. The problem is that was only starting teachers. So we've got teachers who have been in the system for decades and they didn't receive the same kind of raise. So we need to
figure that out.
To equalize that across experience levels.
So let's talk about the Alfie Oaks thing. Is that still in court or is it resolved?
It is still in court.
So you can't really say much about it other than
it's been still in court.
It's been in court for quite a while.
Well, that's court.
Yeah.
Court takes quite a while. And I will repeat what I said to you last time I was on the show. I cannot wait to stand in front of the public with a microphone in my hand and explain the other side of the story.
Yes. So are the masks done?
Masks are done.
Okay. So do kids still show up with masks because their parents feel more comfortable or what?
Yeah, they're done now that school's out.
Correct.
Yeah.
They were
starting next year.
Okay, you still had to wear them until the end. So is this
Correct.
a state thing or the district can make its own decision on the masks?
We made our own decisions on the masks. We have strong guidance from the state for next year to not require masks, but the state didn't provide that strong guidance. When I say strong guidance, it's kind of like a mandate.
Yeah.
They did not provide that mandate for this school year. It's for the next school year.
Got it. So there are 2 school board members that have asked the governor to step in or whatever. I don't even know what the proper wording is. And do we need to have people asking the governor to watch over the school board? Is something going on that people need to know about where the governor needs to step in? What is that all about? I know it was Gwen Gittens the first time and Melissa Giovanelli the second time. Why does the governor need to oversee the county?
I mean, I can't speak for my colleagues. I can't speak for what their motivations were. But I can tell you that as a board, we vet all of the decisions that we make. And sometimes it's a 6-1 vote. Sometimes it's a 4-3 vote. Sometimes it's a 7-0 vote. And when you're that 1 or that 3 that is against the decision that was made by the board, sometimes that's hard to accept. And being on the losing end of a vote doesn't mean you weren't heard. It doesn't mean you weren't respected. It just means that the board has made a decision, and then we as a board need to move forward. I mean, I've been on the losing end of a vote as well. But once the board makes a decision, we really all need to galvanize behind that and support it and move forward.
And there was an ethics complaint filed against Melissa. Is that something you can talk about, or is it something that you filed or somebody else filed? Okay.
I did not
And-
file
and
that,
it was-
and that's really, I would prefer for you to talk to Melissa about that.
Okay. Because somebody hinted yesterday that you filed it. I'm glad we straightened that out, that you didn't file it. And so the other thing was, did you have something you want to? The big news the last few months was this poster thing. Can we talk about the poster
I'm so
thing?
glad you brought it up.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
we can
that's
absolutely
too-
talk
Well,
about
she
it.
said she
For
was
me.
so glad you brought it up.
That's
Why,
we'll
what-
take that away.
What
So
word am
every
I supposed to avoid?
No. Every time
We play a silly
we ask
game.
a question and someone says that's a good question, we have a little competition of who gets the most good questions.
Oh.
And
So
if I win the bell
okay.
thing, she has to kiss me on the lips later, and it's a whole crazy
That was
love
a great
thing.
question.
Thank you. That's a French kiss right there. So anyway, the thing that confused me from the beginning of that, and it's not my beat, but I do tune in to watch the meetings, was that it almost seemed like something was in the manual, and then a board member acted as if she didn't read the manual or didn't see it get in the manual, and then the community was in an uproar about it. Can you kind of rewind us to how that whole thing started?
Sure. I mean, it is our responsibility as board members to consume and understand everything that we vote on. It was a 7-0 vote to pass that code of conduct. And I personally, I will speak to you as one of 7. I will tell you my thought process. I don't have a problem with that poster being in the code of conduct, because the purpose of the code of conduct is for parents to sit down with their kids at the beginning of every school year and go through the code of conduct. I actually, as a parent, appreciate it because it forces me to have conversations with my kids that I may have been negligent about having, throughout the school year. It talks about the consequences of certain acts in the schools, which can be, rise to the level of being criminal.
Back up and tell us what was on the poster so people.
Oh, so it was, it talked about LGBT issues. It talked about, it was really a best practices thing. It wasn't a policy. It was guidance for teachers and parents with regard to students who identify as LGBT in the school district of Lee County.
From now, that poster was in the manual. Was it on the walls at the school?
And that was what I didn't understand. I didn't know that the page would be taken out of the code of conduct and put on the walls in schools.
Oh,
as
somebody
posters.
did that. The district didn't say, okay, we're going to
Correct.
print out 50,000 posters, and
Correct.
oh, somebody did that, and that's how it all kind of started. It was in the code of
Right.
conduct.
And there's a big difference to me between it being in the code of conduct where a parent can have a conversation with a child. If my kid's in 3rd grade, I'm going to skip that page.
Sure.
If my kid's in 5th grade, it's a really good opportunity for me to talk about these issues, find out where they are, and then lead the conversation. That's the key. Parents have the right to lead conversations surrounding these issues. If it's a poster in a school, to me, it's inviting a conversation about
Right.
very intimate issues that should be led by parents.
Right, without the parents.
So you
there.
said it was a 7-0 vote to include it in the code of conduct. Was it the same 7 people that were up on that were at the meeting where the complaints were coming from the community? Just to be clear, because
Yes.
somebody said,
Yes.
I didn't know that was in there. One of
Yes.
the board members said that, which
Yes.
kind of was perplexing to me. It was like, well, didn't you read it? I mean, you
Right.
put the damn thing together.
Right.
Shouldn't you have? So did okay. So
I can't
Right,
speak
right,
to,
right, right,
to
right.
her activities, but I can tell you as a parent, I go through that code of conduct with my kids every single year. And I do it for 2 reasons. I do it again because it's a good opportunity for us to discuss stuff that maybe I wasn't discussing. And in addition, when I sign it, I am saying I have reviewed this with my child, and then my child has to sign it. So if I sign it without going through it with them, it's teaching them it's okay to just sign something.
right.
And so that might be a little crazy, but they hate it. I mean, the beginning of every school year when I make them go through that thing, they hate it. But
How
They hate it.
difficult is it for a school district and teachers to have to talk about that issue?
And not only that issue, but navigate some of the other social issues that are out there.
We never had to worry about that.
I think
I don't
No.
remember worrying
that's
about
the
that.
best question that's been
Oh,
asked all
stop!
day.
I
Now
think
you're just
you're
goofing
right.
around. Oh, all right. I'll kiss you later.
How difficult is it? I don't. I mean, teachers aren't addressing these subjects with kids. If a kid walks into a classroom and trusts their teacher and has a strong relationship with the teacher, the student might bring it up.
Mhm.
And the point of this guidance was to help teachers understand how to address those issues for kids.
What is the rule? If a student comes into a teacher with that type of question, what's the rule?
Encouraging them to talk to their parents
Okay,
about it.
good.
That's the sense
Good.
that I've gotten.
'Cause it's
is
a
that they're
parent's thing.
encouraging. I understand, but there are some areas where I do have concerns. We had a form that I use my son as an example all the time. My son could go to a teacher or a counselor or an administrator and say, I now identify as a girl. I want you to call me Jennifer from now on. I want you to refer to me as she and he. And he could sign that form along with an employee of the school, and I never have to sign it. So
Well, that needs to change, though, right?
that 100% needs to change, and I believe that we're working on changing that. What you need to understand is that the motivation of staff to, in some instances, keep the parent out of it, so to speak. There are parents who will physically and mentally, criminally abuse their children over this issue. But we already have laws in place to protect kids in those instances. And those laws include LGBT issues and kids
but
who might
it's
be
not the
abused because of
teacher's
that.
role to decide which parent's going to beat a kid or not, right? I mean, how do you know? How do you make that decision? How do you know that?
Well, it's not
Well,
in
it's your
advance of, but
right.
as a reporter,
Sure.
you're mandatory
Sure,
reporting
everybody
if you
knows
have
that.
concerns.
Correct. There are ways to protect every single kid in our system, regardless of what issue they bring to the table, while still preserving parents' rights. And that's really the key for me. Is I felt like some of what we were doing was cutting parents out of the process, and you know that is one of the most fundamental rights in the Constitution, to raise your children as you see fit. And I want to protect that right while protecting kids.
So that's still in the code of conduct.
No.
Oh, it
No,
was
that
taken
is-
out.
That was never in the code of conduct.
Okay.
That was considered a counseling tool that
Okay.
could potentially be used by schools. And it's my understanding that a parent signature line has been added.
Oh, okay. So the code of conduct came up again, I believe, in
Yes.
another meeting, and that's when the parents filled the auditorium.
Oof.
And I mean, I understand wanting to go there and speak and the whole thing, but it was really, some of it was ridiculous the way they act. I mean, they act out just so that they could be taken out by the police and stuff like that. So, and you guys almost, I think, closed the meeting or change. You suggested to change the meeting because it was getting crazy. So, take us back to that meeting and what the purpose of that was.
The lawyer for the counsel for the board, I mean, she just had to a couple of times stay calm and remind everybody of it was rough. It was rough.
Well, the lack of civility that we've seen in the boardroom has been exacerbated, I believe, by COVID and COVID fatigue.
Sure.
People are angry, and they are 100% motivated to let you know how angry they are. And that's part of the job. You know, you have to sit and you have to take that. I was very disappointed that first meeting when 60 people spoke, 60, 59 of them were adults. One was one of our students, and he was heckled and booed by the
remember
adults
that.
in the room.
It was so painful to watch.
It was very disappointing. And the other thing that has struck me as rather odd is every one of our students who has spoken on this issue was unaware of the poster. They didn't know it was part of the code of conduct. So you have LGBT supporters saying it's all about the kids, and you have those who are against the poster saying it's all about the kids when the kids knew nothing about it. So it's really about the adults, and it has very little to do with children. So that's the other part that's been really disappointing to me, is the use of children to push an agenda.
Oh, for sure.
On both
Yeah.
sides.
Yeah.
On both sides.
So the code of conduct that you guys were talking about in those meetings, did the page come out?
It did.
Okay, so that page is now. So how do you deal with it now?
So we are going to be holding community forums throughout the entire county, where we're going to turn the community feedback into data. We have this guy down at the district. His name is Adam Malloy, and he is able to turn community feedback into data at these community meetings. And so the board can look at that, staff can look at that, and they can determine what does this community want with regard to these issues. And then they will put forth new guidance, and it won't be focused just on LGBT. It will be focused on all of the issues that our kids face when it comes to bullying, intimidation, and harassment.
So in the school district, is it the men's room and the ladies' room in
Yes.
all the schools? So
Yes.
the parents don't have to worry about.
Correct.
There was some other community bathroom too that people were talking
Correct.
about. Was that a rumor, or is that?
No. I mean, we have gender neutral bathrooms, so to speak, in staff areas throughout every school. So if a student, for whatever reason, doesn't feel comfortable using the bathroom that goes along with their biological gender, any student can go to a principal and say, can I use this bathroom? Can I use this locker room?
Regardless of if it was, maybe they were afraid of somebody. It would have nothing to do with.
But it's like a one-person bathroom, probably,
correct.
Right? Okay, it's not where they're all. Okay, there could be. All right, I don't want to get into that. Okay, so the other thing is that the thing that's starting to gain national attention is the competition between. I have to make sure I say this right. If a man becomes a woman, and then that person wants to compete with women. That's really unfair. I mean, to me, I think it's unfair because whether you agree with me or not, I feel like men and women, their bodies are different. Men are, in most cases, not every case, stronger and faster. And again, not in every case. And it's just unfair to women. To me, in my opinion, it's unfair to women and girls when a person that was born a guy gets to compete against the women and they feel like they should be allowed to. What is the school district's policy on how to deal with that if it ever, maybe it has come up, but if it ever comes up?
Transgender sports. I'm not aware that a transgender athlete has requested accommodations in the school district of Lee County. I'm actually wearing my Florida High School Athletic Association Board of Directors shirt. I sit on the FHSAA board where we make these rules.
Wow.
The policy that's in place currently that will be changing after July 1st, because of the new law that was passed at the state level, is that if a student identifies as transgender and a girl, for example, wants to play on the boys' soccer team instead of the girls' soccer team, they have to go in front of a panel at the state level. The panel is made up of medical doctors and counselors and athletic directors and coaches, and that panel decides whether that child is allowed to compete. Now, that policy was essentially rendered illegal by the new law that was passed at the state level, that bans any transgender participation in sports whatsoever. The additional difficult layer to all of this is the guidance that we got from the executive branch, or the Department of Education, Federal Department of Education, regarding the definition of gender identity, gender identification, and sexual orientation. So what they're saying is if you don't let a biological girl who identifies as a boy play on the boys' team, you're going to lose federal funding.
Do you think that's right? Do you think that's right?
Well, I was an athlete my whole life, and I can't fathom playing basketball or soccer. Those were the two contact sports I played.
Sure.
I can't fathom playing against a boy. I was a high jumper. I probably could have high jumped higher than most of my male counterparts in high school, but not in college. I never could have.
Right. What were you going to say?
I don't know. Well, I guess one of the things that I've seen come up is if kids are competing for scholarships. I mean, how do you handle that? Because that's going to feel unfair to some kiddos.
Right. And I think that's what you're seeing in the case that's coming out of Connecticut. I think you had a couple of girls who were poised to win a state championship, and all of the recruitment and hoopla that goes with that lost to transgender girls. So biological boys who identified as girls, they lost state championship to them. And I think there's a lawsuit surrounding that. But the NCAA has come out with a strong statement that they're supporting transgender participation in sports. And there's some, I don't think national championships can be held in the states that do not permit transgender participation in sports.
I think girls are going to be affected more because.
Well, I also was reading that it's an extremely small percentage.
Doesn't matter. That one girl that feels like that.
I understand.
It's just to me, it just doesn't. It doesn't compute. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But
it is really hard, and it was one of the issues that came to us from the community. Why are you supporting this? We have to follow the state rules. If we want our children to be eligible for and to participate in state championship series in any sports, we have to follow the rules of the FHSAA.
Right.
I'm not willing to deny our children the opportunity to do that for, like what you said, a very, very, very small percentage of kids in the state of Florida for whom this is an issue. And the same is true when it comes to the money from the federal government. I mean, the money that we get from the federal government serves our most vulnerable children.
Mm-hmm.
That is IDEA money, Individuals with Disabilities and Education Act money. So kids with learning disabilities who require special programs, and feeding kids. I mean, those are our federal dollars. So if we buck the federal system and we say, no, we're not going to take your money, we're going to do what we want to do, our most vulnerable kids suffer. So it's a tough balance.
Are you enjoying being a school board member? It didn't look fun the last 2 times I tuned in.
I'm living the dream.
Oh, no, you're not living the dream, but it is nice to see, despite some of the ruckus behavior, people get involved the way they were involved. I'm sure there are times where that room is not nearly as full as it was.
There are times that the room is not nearly as full. But what's important for people to understand is that the people that show up at school board meetings do not represent everybody that I have to represent.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So there might be, a group that shows up every meeting, regardless of the issue, and they're very vocal and they have a lot to say. But I'm also running into people at Pete's Time Out on a Saturday morning, or in the grocery store, or at church, and they have varying views on what's being decided at the school district. And it's really important for me to represent everybody, not just the vocal ones, if that makes sense.
Now, we talked about a couple of the hot topic buttons that are controversial. What are some of just the positive things that have been going on and that you look forward to in the next year with the school board?
Well, I told you before the show started, we had the Golden Apple Teacher celebration last night, which is a really, really beautiful event. It's formal. So the 6 teachers that win the Golden Apple Award are dressed in gowns or suits. One of last night's male winners was a major, I think, in the Army.
Oh, very cool.
And so he was in full uniform.
Where are the pictures of all this? Are they going to be somewhere like
yes.
Okay.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I would think that if you get on the news press at some point this morning, you'll be able to see
that's
it all.
That's a great program.
I mean, the speech he gave, it made my husband cry.
Wow.
I mean, that's how outstanding it was. So as difficult as the job can be on a daily basis, events like that really give you the energy and the positive outlook to continue understanding why you do what you do.
Did we miss anything that you wanted to talk about or mention to the millions and millions of beach goers out there?
I don't
we always appreciate you coming on and filling us in on what's going on, and you've always been great to the show. So thank you so much for coming all the way down here.
Yeah, and thanks for to you and all the board members for doing it, because I'm sure there is a lot of criticism and not a lot of praise. So, thanks to all of them.
If you ask one more question, I'll say it was great.
No, you see, you're a plant now, Chris. You're a plant.
I'm not a plant, but,
so what are your plans for later today?
Excellent question. I'm actually leaving here immediately to go to my daughter's swim meet. So
very nice.
Thank you for asking, because
awesome.
She loves that. It'll be a lot of fun to go there.
And if people want to give you feedback, your email address at the school district is CHRISNP@leeschools.net. So ChrisNP@leeschools.net. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you guys for
having me. Good luck in the meet today.
Appreciate
Chris Patricca, everybody.
Yay.
Lee County School District board member. We appreciate her coming on. That's like her 4th appearance down here, and it's really nice to have her on. And Judy's coming up next. I'm going to read Beach Pottery, let everybody know about our great friends at Beach Pottery. You might see them on the 4th of July. And they've got pots, and more pots, and planters of every size.